Yes, we're still in lockdown in my state, but there's talk about opening up. Protests are being organized to protest the lockdown. And across the United States, there's quite a bit of resistance growing to the experience we're having, not so much with the virus, but with the restrictions that have been put into place to combat the virus. And this brings up a topic that's relevant to the overview effect and to everything we've been talking about, which is unity versus diversity. Now, unity, I think we all understand. Diversity is something, of course, it means inclusion. It means including people who've been underrepresented, and that's a very good form of diversity. But the term means much more than that. It really talks about differences of all kinds, and it's seen as a conflict with unity. However, what I'd like to suggest is when the astronauts think about this, there's really a symbiotic relationship between the two. When astronauts look at the planet from Earth orbit or from the moon, they see unity, serenity, beauty. It's very striking for them. And yet, they come from the surface of the planet and they know that on the surface there is great diversity of opinion, great diversity in terms of resources available to people. In fact, in much of the planet, there is what we would call chaos, a form of diversity that is quite negative. There's a tendency when people think about the overview effect to say that the view from orbit is correct, the view from the surface is incorrect. That's not true. In one of my books in the overview trilogy, i.e., the New Camelot, I thought about this a lot. I wrote a lot about unity and diversity. And the point is, there can be positive and negative unity and positive and negative diversity. Both views are accurate, they're just from a different perspective. So let me give you an example of positive unity. There was quite a lot of that at the beginning of the COVID crisis. People working together, people giving of themselves, a lot of compassion, a lot of support for first responders. There's positive unity. But as I wrote in the New Camelot, there's a negative way of instilling unity, and that's by force. The Roman Empire was comprised of a very diverse group of people, ethnic groups, nations, and so on. The empire imposed unity on that diversity, and in many ways, it was a very benign form of unity in the sense that they brought in elites from these different groups and made them Roman citizens or involved them in Roman culture. And this persuaded those elites to support the empire. But standing behind of it was the Roman army, which was always ready to impose a new form of unity, which we would call totalitarianism, if necessary. And of course, as I mentioned before, diversity is a good thing if it means inclusiveness, if it means including people who previously were excluded. And yet, the diversity of opinion, let us say, once it reaches a point where there is no way to connect different points of view, can be negative. Of course, in the United States, we've experienced civil war. Too much diversity, and other countries have experienced civil war as well. So what we must strive for, actually, is a relationship, a balance between a force that unifies and a force that allows for individual autonomy and diversity. This is not easy to do. If it were, it would have been done. The United States, of course, represents one example of a federal government which is over, in many ways, over a diverse group of states. But there's often quite a bit of tension between these two levels of government. And so the overview effect actually doesn't simply give us a sense of unity, though it does. It gives us an understanding of how we're all connected, how we have to work together, how we need to collaborate. It gives us that, but it doesn't mean we have to get rid of everything that we see on the surface, only that we have to see it in a larger context. And so as we're emerging from the lockdown, we're going to see a greater diversity of opinion, and we may find ourselves longing for that brief period of unified action. But what we should remember is that it's possible, given the right circumstances, given the right narrative, we can come together. And it can be true in our minds and our hearts, as well as in our writings and our videos. It can be true that, yes, we are all in this together as we travel through the universe on Spaceship Earth. Thanks a lot.